Despite America's ironclad guarantees to Ukraine, China gambled everything on a direct invasion to prop up Russia's faltering war machine. On July 13, 2025, Beijing unleashed over 150 Type 99 main battle tanks and 10,000 troops across the Belarusian border, marking China's boldest ground incursion since the Korean War. This massive force, backed by relentless firepower from 20 PHL-191 rocket systems and a swarm of 50 CH-4 drones plus 200 Lancet kamikaze munitions, shattered Ukrainian defenses in hours. Peaceful farming villages near Kharkiv turned into infernos, with rocket barrages sending fireballs soaring hundreds of feet into the sky and drone strikes picking off artillery positions with chilling precision. As Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi had bluntly told EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas just days earlier on July 3rd, Beijing could not afford to see Russia lose its war in Ukraine, fearing it would free America to pivot fully toward Asia. Ukrainian troops were overwhelmed from the start. In just 3 days, over 2,000 were killed or wounded, and entire brigades vanished under the onslaught. Roads to the west clogged with terrified families fleeing the unstoppable waves of Chinese armor, their overloaded cars dodging cluster munitions and burning wreckage. Russian commanders watched with glee, certain that victory was finally at hand. But then, in a twist that stunned Beijing and reaffirmed why America is the ultimate guardian of global order, U.S. forces struck back directly and decisively. In less than a week, America's stealth fighters like the F-35 and F-22, advanced Reaper drones, and M1A2 SEPV-3 Abrams tanks reversed the tide, forcing China and Russia to their knees. How did America pivot so swiftly to direct intervention, bypassing slower NATO channels? And what chilling warnings does this send to nations daring to challenge U.S. resolve? Join me as we dive in. Quick question: which city or state are you watching from? Please comment below to share your take on this scenario, if it really happened. This video content is for entertainment and educational purposes. Please consider when receiving information as well as when commenting. Let's exchange together to come up with perspectives on the situation in the video when it happens. Don't leave yet. I'll show you the devastating toll on Ukraine, enough to cripple a small nation. And stay tuned, because what follows is the heart-pounding clash that changes everything. On July 13, 2025, the battlefield in Eastern Europe transformed overnight. Without warning, China launched a direct invasion into Ukraine to bolster Russia's stalled offensive SAN operation, so massive it stunned military analysts worldwide. From satellite feeds, U.S. intelligence counted over 150 Chinese Type 99 main battle tanks and 300 ZBL-09 armored vehicles crossing the Belarusian border into Ukraine's northeastern corridor near Vovchansk and Lipsy. At least 10,000 Chinese ground troops surged forward in coordinated assault waves, backed by 20 PHL-191 long-range rocket systems that began hammering Ukrainian positions relentlessly. In the first 90 minutes, more than 1,000 rockets pounded Ukrainian defensive belts east of Kharkiv, shredding trenches and sending fireballs hundreds of feet into the sky. Whole sectors went dark as communication lines were severed. Ukrainian artillery crews, desperately trying to return fire with their Bodana 155mm self-propelled guns, found themselves targeted by dozens of CH-4 armed drones and Lancet kamikaze munitions, which picked off counter-battery positions one by one. The Lancet drones, a product of Sino-Russian collaboration drawing from real-world tech transfers in 2025, swarmed like deadly insects, loitering overhead before diving with precision explosives that exploited the weak top armor of T-64 tanks. Visuals from fleeing civilians captured scenes of horror. Columns of Chinese armor, 3 miles long, rolling down highways, reduced to rubble. Explosions lifted 50-ton tanks into the air, flipping them like toys when Ukrainian mines struck home. But for every destroyed tank, 5 more kept advancing, their upgraded thermal sights piercing the smoke and dust. By sundown, Chinese mechanized spearheads had pushed over 20 kilometers deep, tearing through lightly fortified towns. Ukrainian radio intercepts caught desperate calls. "We can't hold. Enemy armor at our flanks. Repeat, at our flanks. Kharkiv line compromised. Behind the front, chaos reigned." Streams of Ukrainian families packed onto narrow roads, fleeing west under the constant threat of cluster munitions from PHL-191 salvos. By dusk, drone footage showed entire neighborhoods flattened, vehicles still burning, and makeshift convoys scattered by incoming rockets. The combination of Lancet swarm siege, capable of 40-kilometer ranges and loitering for hours, and CH-4 drones, feeding real-time data back to rocket batteries, created a nightmare for Ukrainian commanders. These drones, with their 40-hour endurance and laser-guided missiles, mapped positions day and night, exploiting gaps in Ukraine's air defenses that had been worn thin by 3 years of war. It was the largest foreign ground intervention by China since Korea in the 1950s, an unmistakable sign that Beijing intended to shift the entire European balance of power. As analysts from the CFR noted in their 2025 reports, this move aligned with China's strategic calculus. Preventing Russia's defeat would tie down American resources in Europe, buying time for Beijing's ambitions in Taiwan and the South China Sea. For Ukraine, it was nothing short of catastrophe. And for the United States and NATO, it posed a terrifying question. Would they let this stand? Or meet force with force? Don't leave yet. I will show you the terrible damage that Ukraine has suffered enough to destroy a small country. In only 3 days, Ukraine paid a staggering price. As Chinese armored battalions surged across the border, Ukraine's defenses simply couldn't cope. The numbers were brutal. Over 80 Ukrainian armored vehicles destroyed, from T-64 tanks to modernized BMP fighting vehicles. Alongside them, more than 40 self-propelled artillery units were knocked out, leaving entire brigades without fire support. Casualties mounted at an alarming pace. Field reports confirmed at least 2,000 Ukrainian soldiers killed or wounded in the opening 72 hours. Entire frontline companies were erased by precision rocket strikes and roaming Chinese drones that identified targets with chilling efficiency. Ukraine's air defenses faltered under constant pressure. CH-4 drones and Lancet swarms mapped out Ukrainian positions day and night, feeding data back to rocket batteries that unleashed over 1,000 rockets in just the first 2 days. Key radar sites went offline, creating gaps that allowed Chinese reconnaissance teams to push even deeper. Supply lines collapsed quickly. Ukrainian fuel convoys were repeatedly ambushed or destroyed by drone-guided artillery, forcing tank crews to abandon vehicles. Ammunition stocks dwindled. Command posts lost contact with outlying units, some of which were overrun without a single shot fired in return. Meanwhile, civilians poured out of the east in waves. By the end of day 3, July 15, 20,000, Ukrainians had fled, choking highways with overloaded cars and trucks. Local police struggled to keep order as terrified families raced west, many leaving behind homes already scarred by shrapnel and fire. Within 72 hours, Ukraine's eastern defenses were in shambles. The combination of relentless drone surveillance with Lancets exploiting their kamikaze dives to bypass countermeasures and heavy rocket saturation from PHL-191 systems cracked their lines wide open. Ukrainian generals knew they couldn't hold out alone. If help didn't come soon, China and Russia together would slice through to the Dnieper River, and Ukraine could lose half its country in a matter of weeks. Facing collapse in the east, Ukraine's president made a decision he had hoped to avoid. Late on July 16th, he placed a direct call to the White House, pleading for immediate military assistance. The message was blunt. Without U.S. help, Ukraine risked losing half its territory within weeks. In Washington, urgency gripped the administration. That night, on July 16th, the NSC convened a high-level emergency session. Intelligence officers laid out the cold facts. Chinese forces had advanced over 20 kilometers in 3 days. Ukrainian brigades were shattered, and Russia was preparing to exploit the chaos to launch fresh assaults toward Kiev. Top American generals warned that if the U.S. stood by or limited itself to indirect aid through NATO, China's intervention would set a dangerous precedent. Other adversaries could redraw borders by force, knowing America might hesitate, especially with Beijing's ambitions in Taiwan looming. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs put it plainly: this isn't just Ukraine. This is the world watching to see if we still hold the line. Indirect support won't suffice. Direct intervention is essential to prevent a broader escalation that could draw in Asia. Within hours, the president approved a direct intervention order. Unlike NATO's slow-moving councils, this was a purely American decision, aligned with the Trump administration's 2025 policy of swift action to enforce peace-deploying U.S. assets immediately to deter aggression and avoid prolonged entanglement. C-17 transport aircraft were loaded with advanced anti-tank systems like Javelin and Tau missiles, drones, and medical supplies. Tank crews and mechanized units were put on standby. F-35 and F-22 squadrons stationed in Europe were quietly alerted to prepare for combat sorties over Ukraine, with Patriot PAC-3 batteries rushed in to shield against incoming rockets and drone swarms. The message was clear. The United States would not allow China to dictate Europe's future by force. Direct involvement was non-negotiable. Any delay or reliance on proxies could embolden Beijing further, risking a cascade of conflicts from Europe to the Pacific. As orders were signed, planners estimated American air power could begin strikes within 36 hours. Ukraine would not stand alone, and Beijing was about to discover the full weight of provoking the world's most formidable military. How would you have answered such arrogance? Leave your views in the comments and stay tuned because the next part shows exactly how the US turned the tables. July 17, 2025, just after dawn, the Ukrainian skies filled with low contrails and the faint rumble of jet engines, heralding a dramatic turn in the war. The United States had arrived, and it wasn't holding back. In hours, a US combat package swept into Ukraine's northeast. 20 F-35 and F-22 stealth fighters launched SEAD missions, their AESA radars spotting Chinese SAM sites before they activated. AGM-88 HARM missiles streaked at Mach 2, silencing radars with pinpoint blasts lighting the dawn. MQ-9 Reaper drones followed, loitering at 25,000 feet with infrared pods, hunting PHL-191 rocket systems. Hellfire missiles plunged, exploiting thin armor, turning launchers into craters. China's 200 Lancet swarms countered, one kamikaze drone hitting a Reaper in a fiery blast. Its 40-kilometer range deadly but slow speed vulnerable to jamming. Heavy C-17 transports landed near Kharkiv, unloading 50 M1A2 SEPV-3 Abrams tanks and Stryker Dragoons, their digital fire controls primed for ambushes. They linked with Ukrainian brigades, Bayraktar TB2 drones feeding real-time visuals of ZBL-09 vehicles exposed in fields, their speed useless off-road. Infantry deployed Javelin and Tau missiles. A Javelin locked a Type 99 2 kilometers out, its top attack warhead flipping the tank in flames. Taus shredded ZBL-09 convoys from cover. In 6 hours, 40 Chinese tanks burned, hulks littering fields. Above, F-35 pilots tracked heat signatures, dropping GBU-31 bombs on ZBL-09 columns, igniting chain reactions. Chinese radio panicked. Missiles from nowhere, pull back. Fuel-heavy Type 99 stalled in mud. Abrams flanked, sabot rounds piercing at Mach 5. Reapers hit trucks with Hellfires, their turboprops humming. China fought back. Lancets overwhelmed a Patriot PAC. 3-battery, damaging radar. US lost 20 drones and 200 personnel to jamming and skirmishes. Ukrainian Bayraktar downed 15 Lancets, but lost 30 to CH-4 strikes. In 6 hours, 100 Chinese vehicles were destroyed. US tech uplinks, drone feeds, stealth jets dominated. Yet, the fight was raw. Flames, cordite, soldiers scrambling. Ukrainian radio roared, "Americans here hold." By nightfall, July 17th, thermals showed burning wrecks, bodies, surrenders. Kharkiv's road cleared. China's gamble crushed. For China, a lesson in fire. For Ukraine, hope. For America, dominance proven, at cost. By July 19, 2025, China's gamble collapsed into disaster. The remnants of 10,000 troops and 150 vehicles retreated across Belarus, leaving 100 burned-out Type 99 tanks and ZBL-09 wrecks. 2,000 Chinese soldiers were dead or wounded, a crushing loss for no gain. The world reeled. Capitals from Brussels to Tokyo held urgent talks, acknowledging America's unmatched power. Its F-35 jets, MQ-9 drones, and M1A2 SEPV-3 Abrams dismantled a peer foe in days. Ukraine's defenses stabilized, soldiers reclaimed villages, civilians waved flags beside US troops. The president spoke. America seeks no conflict, but no power redraws borders by force. For China, a brutal lesson. For Russia, a warning alliances falter. The July 13th campaign became a global cautionary tale. As CFR analysts noted in 2025, China might pivot to rebuilding Ukraine to salvage influence, dodging US sanctions. Once more, this is a hypothetical scenario analysts warn could unfold in today's geopolitics. We need such scenarios to prepare contingency plans for swift response. China's move challenged US leadership. Was Beijing testing or miscalculating? Share your thoughts in the comments and stay tuned.